The assets themselves are each unique, and each come with a high degree of credibility in the context of where we source these assets. So, for instance, our Nevada lithium asset is in the Clayton Valley area. It is the only lithium producing area in the United States, the Silver Peak mine.
Welcome to Assay TV, and we're joining US Critical Metals, and I'm delighted to be joining Darren Collins, who's CEO and Director of the company. Darren, thanks for taking time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having us. Excellent.
So there's a really interesting narrative that we heard a lot throughout the conference, and it's taking shape around the world, and that is, the support for US critical metals, the security of supply as well. So perhaps we could start with that big picture thinking. What's your take as a company on this trajectory now?
Sure. So we've really started this company to address, issues within the United States as it relates to security of supply, and particularly in the interest of topics that are critical to the U.S., whether it's electrification, whether it's national defense, national security. The reality is when you look at not only the supply, but also the supply chains around the world as it relates to commodities in which we're addressing, you have a competitive situation with countries such as China that don't align with U.S. interests. So really, our business model is developing those sources of supply within the U.S. as the supply chains develop, and really looking as that as a security for the U.S. The reality is that the U.S. right now in many of these commodities has about a 1-year supply of strategic reserves. In the event that there's increased tensions with countries around the world, and that current supply and processing capacity is no longer in place, the U.S. has a very significant situation. Where does fighting back against that start? It starts at the drill bit. So we're focused on making discoveries of new resources strictly within the U.S.
Yeah, certainly. And there's been some positive motion in terms of a policy approach, things like the Inflation Reduction Bill, that hopefully we'll see some capital coming upstream, but that's surely going to be boosting projects such as yours, hopefully in the long run, in terms of perhaps a willingness to permit in the US or willingness to add capital to upstream projects.
Absolutely. So governments are making very large commitments to this industry. One of the nice things that we're seeing, and it's not always been the case in extractive industries, is bipartisan support for critical metals within the U.S. And really, there's not much of a choice that government has. They see the issue, they know there's an issue, and they know that it's a threat to the U.S. economy. So you're looking at things like the Inflation Reduction Act, where there's grants available, there's loan guarantees, things like that are ultimately going to drive construction and bringing online of these projects. Interesting enough, and we'll get into the assets of the company, but for instance, in Montana, through Montana Tech's actually getting grant money to work on our project from the U.S. U.S. Army Research Lab. So we're getting that government interest, and we obviously intend to tap into that more as we move forward.
Yeah. What are some of the applications, end use applications, that these critical minerals go into in the military sense? Is it sort of like radar equipment?
So night vision goggles, air-to-ground missile defense systems. There's a lot of applications that on the rare sites that we have. So definitely very important for U.S. military as an application, and again as a national security consideration.
Yeah, certainly. Interesting. Very good. Well, let's hone in then on the projects. Could you give us an update on first an overview of the portfolio, because you've got 3 very interesting assets that you're developing?
Excellent. So the business model of the company is again a portfolio approach. And why is that the case? We are exploration focused, so we're earlier stage assets, but we get diversification and essentially risk reduction across having a portfolio, which gives us optionality in terms of how we can create value for our shareholders. Is that drilling assets ourselves? Is that spinning them out? Is that farming them down, divesting them? My personal background is in corporate finance, so I spent a good part of my career as mergers, acquisitions, equity, debt. I've been an entrepreneur for about the last 8 years or so, building companies. But really, that's the model from a portfolio perspective. The assets themselves are each unique, and each come with a high degree of credibility in the context of where we sourced these assets. So, for instance, our Nevada lithium asset is in the Clayton Valley area. It is the only lithium producing area of the United States, the Silver Peak mine. We sourced that through the same group that put together the acreage for Ioneer and American Lithium, so a very well-known family within Nevada that has intimate knowledge of that part of the world. We are actually in a ridge above the basin, similar to what you'd see, with an Ioneer. We've sampled that asset. We've mapped that asset. We're putting in notice of intent to the BLM and plan to drill that in the new year. We're seeing grade. We're seeing, what we believe is good thickness. We're seeing, lithium broadly distributed across the property. So for the stage of asset that it is, I think it has, about as good a potential as you're going to find within the United States.
How is Nevada as an environment? Sorry to butt in. Just
Nevada's Fraser Institute 2021 ranked it as the top jurisdiction in the world. That is from a perspective of ease of operation, ability to permit, and the like, but also geologic prospectivity. So that's really the leading, jurisdiction within the U.S. and arguably globally as well. Yep. Quite happy to be working in Nevada again. I really enjoy the state. The second asset, and consistent with the theme that we're discussing, the second asset is in the good state of Montana. We actually sourced that asset through the gentleman that was head of rare earths for the USGS. His name's Jim Hedrick. He spent, his career with government. He pensioned out and is intimately familiar with all the rare earth assets within the U.S. and obviously a bunch of them globally as well. This is a project that he's particularly excited about, and that excites us. It is an exceptionally high-grade asset. We've sampled it at surface up to 18% rare earths, neodymium, praseodymium, also a good amount of gallium as well. Yep. We have historic adits on the property that we've opened up. We've gone underground. We're seeing similar same mineralization. Frankly, we've tested that mineralization below ground. We sampled it. We'll be coming out with those results, but we're 4,500 acre property there. We tripled the size of the property. We're looking at a district scale opportunity. I would characterize Nevada as more brownfield. This is more greenfield, tip of the spear, where you have also airborne geophysics being done in partnership between USGS, go figure, and Rio Tinto, looking for mineral deposits within the region. So we definitely have good validation on the project from multiple sources that we're going to look to permit this project. It's Forest Service land, so we've done initial work to get it to drill ready. We're going to do a technical report on it, 43-101, and then look to make those filings on the plan of operation with Forest Service. The acreage was previously permitted in the past, so we have a high degree of confidence that we should have a good process there. And so far, the dialogue with Forest Service has been very positive. But that is a district scale opportunity that we're looking at there, and really the right people around the table. We announced that in August, so we've been quite busy. It's a season. Obviously, it's in the mountains of Montana, so it gets quite a bit of snow. But we've done what we need to get it to drill ready, and now we're doing the permitting and desktop type work in preparation for the spring.
Do you have a drill date in mind early next year?
It's likely summer to end of summer. So we're going to have to do a bunch of work with Forest Service and the like to get it there, but I believe we can.
Excellent.
The third asset is, again, sourced through a group that has intimate knowledge in the commodity in which we are addressing, but also a lot of experience within the specific jurisdiction within the U.S. That is Jody DeRouge and DeRouge Geologic Consulting. They're about 20 different technical individuals that work across the U.S. and in Canada, internationally as well. But they had a claim package that was right next to where Jervois is currently bringing an asset into production there. It will be one of the only, in fact, the only, to the best of my knowledge, of its type within the U.S. where you have cobalt that is actually one of the primary metals within the deposit. Generally, you find cobalt associated with other metals in very low quantity. Exactly. Here, you actually have a very high percentage of cobalt within the ore. So we're right on the mineralized trend. We have historic workings on the property that were historically gold and copper mines. We also have gold and copper as part of our part of our rock. But the reality is that we have every reason to believe that the trend continues onto our side of the property. That we have a good potential to build out a deposit there. Again, we will sample it more. We will map it. We will do some geophysics. We will get it to drill ready, and then we'll look at what our options are, similar to the other assets within the portfolio. Taking a view of what are the strategic options that we have available to create value for our shareholders. I will add one. We're not closed. We're with the exchange right now. We announced a uranium deal as well. So we'll be looking at what value creating options we have available on that. Again, looking at using our shareholder base to constitute a new entity where we could essentially have multiple listed entities out of this company and free up value for our shareholders.
Yeah.
So that kind of comes back to the corporate finance background that I bring to the table and execution in terms of a public markets executive and structuring and executing on deals.
Yeah, excellent. And that uranium project, are you able to talk about some of the attributes of that, or where that is?
Absolutely. It's in the good state of Idaho. It's got very good grade indications at surface. It also has a good amount of vanadium in it as well. So initial look looks very promising, but we'll qualify that property with a 43-101. We'll get the requisite spend done to qualify the property, and then we'll look at strategic options on that, likely looking to constitute a new entity as a spin out.
Yep.
So that is an asset and a commodity that we think is quite interesting, and we'll look for other assets within uranium as well that perhaps we layer on top of that to form a new entity. It's all structured, good to go. We're just waiting on the exchange here.
Excellent. Share insight to the capital structure of the company.
So we are not employees of this company. We are founders, entrepreneurs. We're working for our equity. I take a very reasonable monthly draw for my services out of the company, but I'm a shareholder here. I'm almost 10% of the company. The founding group and insiders are well over 40% of the stock. We did $6 million of financing approximately March of this year. We started trading. That is last reported number still 4.4 million of that on the balance sheet. So we're not up against the ropes for financing or anything like that. Obviously, over time, exploration and development companies need capital, but we're not in that position right now. We have milestones coming out, and we have work to do, and we have capital resources available to us. But we're, 51 million shares, a little bit north of that out, call it 51 million shares. We did the go public financing at 35 cents with a warrant at 50. So we have, warrant coverage in there. But at the end of the day, we've held in quite well. You've seen a lot of companies trade down here. From kind of beginning of the year till now. We've have a very supportive investor base. We did the go public financing, $6 million, a third essentially. A third ourselves, a third a group of U.S. investors that are subscribers to a newsletter writer that's very well known in Canada and very credible, and then a third a couple brokers in Canada. So really, all the stock in the company is updated with 4 phone calls. We had 6 million shares come free trading over the summer. The stock barely traded. It didn't trade that day. In fact, it's the first time in my career I saw it. Investors are, really taking a good view on this and, letting the company develop, letting the company execute. Since we formed the company, so from formation, now 4 property deals, go public transaction, advancing each property. Technically, it's been very busy, but, we're executing. We get things done.
Yeah.
And the company is a well-oiled, functioning machine at this point in time. Everybody is not learning on the job. Everybody has the right background, the right experience. Whether that again is financial, legal, or technical. Everyone has their lane, and nobody really strays outside that too much. Everybody knows what they're doing. So, in terms of building out market awareness, and our listings, we are primary listing TSX Venture. We also have a US OTCQB listing and then a Frankfurt listing. We've started to, broaden out the shareholder base in the following within the US. We're obviously over here in London doing the same in Europe, and we'll look to continue to do so in England and in Germany and the like. But, I'd say by and large, the story is not broadly known. The company is not broadly known at this point, and what our business model is and what we're doing. So
Yeah.
we're very much focused on that as well, in addition to moving along the assets.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for viewers and for next year, what are some of those milestones that you mentioned before that you're looking forward to reaching?
Certainly the drilling. Those are very key milestones, and really everything is moving towards that. But we'll also look at additional assets for the portfolio. There's commodities that we like within the umbrella of critical metals, and how we can position and create value there.
Yeah.
We are very much a transactional team, across, again, corporate finance, accounting, legal, technical ability to evaluate assets quickly, see how we can create value. And near term, looking at what are the results getting these assets to drill ready, and what those drill programs are going to look like, and what we're targeting.
Yep, excellent, very good. Well, Darren, thanks very much for speaking with Assay TV. Great to get a snapshot of your projects, and a really exciting time for those critical metals heading into next year. So
yeah, excellent. Thank you for taking the time as well.